Okay, good morning and welcome to Yeshiva YouTube, Iyun and Iyun. Today we're analyzing Maseches Orlah, new Masechta, Mishnah Beis. The Mishnah seemingly has two parts, which, according to Rav Avadia Bartanu's explanation, seemingly are incongruent. The first, it says, the Mishnah begins, Eisha Ba was in La'aretz, Matzah Natu Apater, Natu Al Pishal Kishu Chayav. Right? If Natus, the Rav explains, Bein Yisrael ben Nachri, La'achar Shabal Aretz, if a Yisrael or a Jew planted a fruit-bearing tree, once it came to Israel, Afish Lo Kivshe Yisrael, it's Aretz Chayav. Even though the land didn't belong to the Jews yet, they didn't conquer the land, it's Chayav. They said, Kol Eitz, Bein Natu Yisrael, Bein Natu Nachri, whether a Jew planted it, whether a Nachri planted it. Now, it seems from the Rav, if the Nachri planted, even in his own field, even if he planted in his own field, since it's in the land of Eretz Yisrael, it's in Eretz Yisrael, like the pasuk says, like the Rav says before, Kitavo al arz unatatem. When you come to the land and you plant, right? Even if a non-Jew planted, if it's Eretz Yisrael, Arla really is a mitzvah tluya ba'aretz, it's dependent on the soil of Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, it's chayav and Orlah. Then a couple lines later in the Mishnah, it says V'nachri shanata. So the Rav says Besada shal Yisrael, he planted in the field of Yisrael. So this seemingly contradicts before what we said. Even if a non-Jew would plant, seemingly even in his own field, if it's Eretz Yisrael, he'd be chayav in Orlah. To add to this, the Rambam, Nachri Shanata, Inyan Shanata Yisrael, he planted for Yisrael, B'schiros HaMachinim, Shorta L'Trach, B'shlo Ma'atzmo, Aval, Im Notea Nachri La'atzmo, V'kanu Ena Yisrael, Acher Kein, Eno chayav Orlah, Eno Lachar Hira. He says that if the non-Jew planted in his own field and you bought it from him, if he didn't plant it for you, you didn't hire him to plant it for you, so then it's Potter in Orlah. Which again seemingly supports what Rav Barton was saying, and all the Mefarshim really deal with the seeming stira over here. So what is it? Is it the land of Eretz Yisrael, or is it the Jewish owned fruit-bearing tree? What is it? What is Mechayev and Orlah? To add to this is that we know that Orlah, even though it's a mitzvah totally ba'aretz, depending on the land of Eretz Yisrael, midaraisa only applies kitavo al aretz in Eretz Yisrael. However, the Gemara in Kedushin says that really, even in Daraisa, it applies outside of Eretz Yisrael. When you grow a grapevine in America, it's chayav and Orlah also. You can't benefit for the first 3 years. Not Midaraisa, there are practical differences. For example, Suffolk Orlah. Gemara says Suffolk Orlah, but Chutz La'aretz is mutter. If you're not sure if it's Orlah, in Chutz La'aretz, outside Eretz Yisrael, it's mutter. In Eretz Yisrael, it's Asher Midaraisa, Suffolk Daraisa L'chumra. That's one of the practical differences between them. Based on that, I'd like to suggest reconciliation to this seeming contradiction in the Ravadia Bartanura, based on what I talked about at the end of Maseches Chala, that, again, Mitzvah Chala also seemingly only Eretz Yisrael. There's two types of Mitzvah Tluya Ba'aretz. Mitzvah Tluya Ba'aretz that depends on the physical ground of Eretz Yisrael. And there's a Mitzvah Tluya based on the living in Eretz Yisrael. And when it says Kitavo Aretz, much like it says by Chala, it's dependent, the mitzvah of Chala is dependent on not the growth in the land of Eretz Yisrael, it's mitzvah of living in Eretz Yisrael. So therefore, the first part of the Mishnah, when you come to Eretz Yisrael, even if a goy plants it in its own field, it's in the land of Israel. It's in the virtual or physical borders of Israel. And for that, we even say Kedusha Rishon Kitchel Shaisad Kitchel Asid Lava. Whatever Yoshua conquered was forever Eretz Yisrael. Mishnah says even before he conquered, but those were the boundaries of Eretz Yisrael, and therefore, if you're living in Eretz Yisrael, even if it's a goy's field, it's chayav and Orlah, which would be halachically significant. However, in America or at Chutz La'aretz, where the mitzvah is also a mitzvah, but what's the reason the Torah didn't say the mitzvah applies midaraisa in Eretz Yisrael and Chutz La'aretz? They want to tell you the practical difference. Even though they apply on a level of the daraisa in both places. One is halachah l'mishur Sinai, it was a secret that sought the Moshe at Har Sinai, verbally, not expressed through the Torah, to teach you that it only applies in the land of a Jew outside of Israel. The land has to be owned by the Jew. As I mentioned before, Mitzvah Tluya is going to be talking about, stuff that actually grows from the ground, depends on the ground of Eretz Israel or the land of Eretz Israel. So we know from the pasuk Kisavo al Aretz that the mitzvah of Orlah is dependent on the borders of Eretz Israel, not the actual ground of Eretz, living in Eretz Israel, and that's the mitzvah d'oraisa. So the deeper chiyuv is when it actually grows from the land. So therefore, outside of Eretz Israel, in order to mechayev it, you have to actually grow it. The land has to belong to a Jew, which is clearly what the Rav Bar Tanura said. The Rambam says maybe even if it belonged to a non-Jew, but the Jew hired him to grow it for him, so at least that's considered like he owns part of the land. But according to Rav Bar Tanura, the dafka has to belong to the Jew, the land, because then it's considered the Jews. It's the Jew's property. It's the Jew's property. Uh, just a Jew having in his possession Eretz Yisrael is enough to mechayev an Orlah, but outside Eretz Yisrael, you need mamas tluya ba'aretz of a Jew to make a Jewish land. Eretz Yisrael, just living in Israel is mechayev an Orlah, even if it was grown in a non-Jewish field. I think that's the correct distinction over here. Hope you enjoyed today's shir. See you in the next one.